Every claim tells a story, and some are stranger than fiction. Welcome to the F-Files. When claims get weird, we get to work.
Happy New Year, everybody, and welcome back to the F-Files. We're officially in the New Year, New You season, which means our social media is flooded with ads promising us a better version of ourselves. Have you noticed that, Daphne?
Oh, yeah. Every year around this time of the year, I start seeing people consider undergoing some form of treatment for aesthetic appearances and maybe like hormone replacement therapy or weight loss services. I've always wondered what kind of atmosphere the offices have that do these kind of things. The ones that have ads for glowing skin, quick weight loss, and biohacking your way to a better life. Do you know what those offices are all about and what they're like inside?
Well, since you're asking, I have been in a few, and I kind of think of them like postmodern sanctuaries where people just go for like a ritualized cleansing after the holidays, after they've had like 10 times the amount of calories they should have had and like too much alcohol. So picture soft lighting, you're smelling eucalyptus and lavender. You might be leaning on a pastel throw pillow, sipping your cucumber water and listening to some like, I don't know, like flute music. So you're feeling like super zened out. And then picture needles piercing the delicate skin under your eyes and
Oh.
acids peeling off your face and the faint aroma of lasers burning off your skin. So that's what they're like inside. It's kind of like aspirational torture.
That sounds good at first, terrible at the end.
Sorry.
They're not like, okay, so I have a funny story. Sorry, it just came to me. I went with my friend one time to like a full-on day spa. It's not like that at all, where you get like body treatments and massages, and
Well,
it's not.
kind of. So yeah, it's like blurring the lines between a day spa and a doctor's office. So
Okay.
it's like the boundaries around healthcare get a little bit blurry.
Okay. So the funny part of that story is she did tell me we were going to a day spa. It was right before her wedding. So we were going to go, do like the relaxing stuff in preparation for the wedding day. But she did fail to mention that inside they also have like a clothing optional bathhouse. So I walked into that completely oblivious to that's what was happening. And I was a little shocked.
Interesting. You West Coasters you guys, you always just level up. I don't think we have that over here.
Yeah, I mean, we're not Texas where it's like go big or go home, but we
You're
do
not
like
a
some out there things.
Yeah, you're not afraid to get a little weird.
Okay, so anyways, on these med spa things, when I look online, sometimes I see the pictures of like the slender figured or muscular people alongside the advertisements for the weight loss therapy or the hormone replacement therapy. And then you'll see what I would consider to be like a menu of services that they can offer. Sometimes they'll have special packages for specific months or new members. Sometimes they'll have what I would consider to be like a membership fee based service. So a person would pay like a specific amount every month to get the services that are being requested. I know over here in Washington, we have tons of those clinics around. It seems like on every other street corner. Do you have those where you're at over on the East Coast?
Yeah, definitely. We're very, very vain over here on the East Coast.
Okay. Well, it's good to know it's a coast to coast issue.
It's America.
Well, this year my curiosity got the best of me, and I did a deeper dive into what these offices and facilities provide and potentially what kind of fraud might exist in these types of clinics. I came up with a short list that I could think of right off the top of my head without having any experience with these types of offices. But what I came up with was maybe a misrepresentation of services, some potentially unsafe practices for members, and then maybe billing for an excessive number of units.
Hmm.
Are there any other potential areas that you could think of fraud, waste, and abuse for these types of clinics?
Yeah, so aside from what you mentioned, I'd also look at unqualified staff. Currently, I'm working on a case where an esthetician performed photodynamic therapy, PDT, And that's something that requires a medical license. So it was a plastic surgeon billing it, but it was the esthetician performing it. Something else I would look at is maybe a ghost medical director. So sometimes these places can pay a doctor a monthly fee to use their name on the door, but that doctor really never steps foot in the building. And then if there's no supervision or oversight, then there's issues on like safety and sanitation. And then don't even get me started on black market products like you mentioned Botox. So, there are places that will buy their Botox overseas. I don't know why I just laughed because it's not really funny, because it can be dangerous. And they can even bill the patient or the insurance the premium rate for that rather than the discounted rate.
Yeah. Now that you mentioned that, getting products off the black market, it reminds me of an episode. I love the true crime stuff. So, an episode of a traveling doctor who would go to like hotel rooms and inject people with their injection of choice. But I'm sorry, I laugh too. It's not funny. It's not funny at all. But they had injected somebody who wanted like a butt lift with some cement mixed in with some other things.
I've
Um,
heard about this on the news. Yes, it was a
yeah,
big
I
thing
wonder.
happening. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if they kind of like came from a clinic like this, or if that's something just on its own, like a concierge med spa clinic.
Gosh. I mean, from what I heard, a lot of it, well, I heard a couple of news stories where these things were happening, like in Mexico, but it's hard to say. It's hard to say. Um, that's why we really need to pay close attention to these types of places because there are significant safety issues.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, well, we have an SIU member who actually used to work in one of these clinics. Welcome to the F Files. It's so good to have you here, and I'm excited to hear about your story.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about your credentials?
Yeah, I'm a bachelor's prepared registered nurse. I did 8 years or so in a medicine ICU of a level one trauma center, and then travel nursed during COVID, and then kind of got burnt out of the ICU life. So tried to find some different ways to use my nursing degree. So I did outpatient eye surgery for a little bit and then found a friend of mine had started working at this concierge medicine clinic, which sounded awesome. I'm very passionate about helping people to become healthier, not just waiting till they're sick. So this seemed like a really great option. So did about a year and a half at this concierge clinic that had a lot of issues that were not apparent initially.
Okay. So you said you worked there for about a year and a half. When you were brought on to the staff at that clinic, what was your understanding of what your job responsibilities would be?
Really, not a whole lot. Even the first couple days after I started, there were no protocols, no guidance. People just kind of did what the owner said.
Mm.
That's a little scary.
Definitely a change of pace from an ICU existence. So.
Oh, yeah. So, could you give us a little bit of an idea of what your day-to-day routine was like there?
Yeah, kind of all over the place, but just kind of a laundry list of things that I was doing all day. So, completing referrals for specialists, a bunch of procedures, whether that be different IV things, IV hydration, NAD drips, things like that, stem cell harvest or administration, ozone therapy, aesthetics like Botox, but also some like laser therapies and things of that nature. Bloodletting kind of goes hand in hand with the HRT and various injections. I was also doing weight loss consultations, fielding patient questions over the phone, entering lab orders, and promoting products. We carried a lot of supplements and things like that we were encouraged to push.
Mm.
I'm sorry, did you say bloodletting?
Yes.
Great minds think alike,
Okay.
Daphne.
Oh my gosh. Did they have leeches?
No, it was
Okay,
really
good.
the same kind of thing you'd do if you were to go give blood. It's just if you were to go to like a traditional blood donation center. They make you jump through the hoops and that. And here at this clinic, you could just do it if you wanted to without really any sort of protocol or anything. It was related to hormone replacement therapy. A certain percentage of male patients will increase their red blood cell production to the point that they have like really, really high hemoglobin and hematocrit, and that can put you in danger of things like stroke and whatnot. And they're going to be hypertensive and the whole thing. So we do take off about a unit at a time. It should be over like every 3 months or so, depending on what that patient's specific H&H is.
Is that common? I've never heard of that before.
It is in the hormone replacement therapy field. I would, if I had to guess, I'm not looking at numbers, about 20% of male patients experience like a significant increase in their H&H.
Wow. Okay, because in my brain, logically, I'm thinking, okay, well, instead of increasing the testosterone, maybe we just decrease it and then we won't have to take more blood.
You know,
But
that is a
that's not how it works.
get out of here with
It's not
these
profitable,
ideas,
Daphne.
okay? Yeah, that too. That too, Mandy.
All right. Well, I don't know. I'm starting to get my spidey senses are tingling right now. Can you tell us a little bit about your medical director at that practice? Like, were they involved in the day-to-day operations?
So, kind of a strange web here. The owner was a licensed physician. He was there daily, interacting with people, offering medical advice. Um, he was responding to patients via text and seeing them in person. Um, but they were not technically the medical director because, as I found out after having signed on and started working there, this individual he lost his medical license. So um, we were using somebody else's medical license who really only showed up in the clinic like every 3 months. So we had a stamp with his signature that we would use for documents, and it was like preloaded onto order forms and things. So we could do things under this individual's name. And that was not the individual that owned the clinic and was there showing face and whatnot.
I'm sure this arrangement with the way the doctors were was uncomfortable for you. And so I'm wondering if this arrangement was common knowledge, if the medical director's history was known about with the staff, and if they understood how serious it was, and if so, if there was a culture of secrecy.
Definitely a culture of secrecy. When I asked about it, I'm like, why are we not using, the owner's information on all these forms? It was like, oh yeah, um, he doesn't have his license anymore. I'm like, what do you mean? So it can be looked up, but what boils down to unsafe prescribing of hormone replacement therapy and related medications, and he would actually have to go back to residency to get his license back. And
Mm.
at this like age, he wasn't going to do that. So how it was working, come to find out, is they were cutting a check to this other individual to use his um, NPI and had his information to sign in for different compounding pharmacy portals to order medications under this individual's name, and had his eScribe account set up. So everything was done under this other individual who, again, only showed up like every 3 months to just be like, hey guys, you need anything? Would answer a couple calls for his other business and then walk out. Never saw patients, anything like that. So we ended up switching to a person that was going to be more um, in the clinic. So there was a medical director in house at that point. I say in house lightly because he was really only there about 50% of the time. So
Mm.
when he wasn't there, the nurse practitioner quit and the PA had quit. So at the end, it was just me being the only person in that building with a license, like 50% of the time.
Oh my
Mm.
goodness.
Yeah.
That's scary. As a nurse, like your first inclination is to protect your own license so that you can continue to see people and practice.
Yep.
So that would give me such bad anxiety.
Oh yeah. Patients would call and other employees were like, well, can you see him? I said, no, they can call 911. I hadn't seen anybody.
Considering all the things that you just talked about, do you know if this doctor was ever reported for any reason?
So I was very good friends with the nurse practitioners and PAs that had gone through, and everybody realized that this was an unsafe situation. And a couple times, the nurse practitioner, her license was used over a weekend when, for some reason, they lost access to the providing portal that they were using for the former medical license guy, and had been prescribing medications under her name all weekend and didn't tell her. She didn't know. Monday morning, gets a call from a local pharmacy asking for clarification on a prescription. She was like, "What are you talking about? I didn't prescribe this for so and so." And come to find out, they had been using her NPI all weekend to order medications, probably like 40, 50 plus prescriptions that she was
Oh
completely
my
unaware of.
gosh,
So that's
that's
when
crazy.
we started trying to bark up certain trees to get some attention.
Well, I'm glad you did for the safety of patients, but I mean, I can imagine like that's got to be tough having to make a call like that, whether or not to report the person who signs your paycheck, because knowing the trickle down effect, that could potentially and ultimately be you end up losing your job, which puts food on your plate and helps you take care of your family. Um, can you talk a little bit about weighing those issues and what kind of set you on the path to making the reports? If you did, I didn't get clarification there if it was you or anybody else within the clinic.
Yeah, it definitely helped. I have a very strong sense of like what is right and wrong. That's just how I was raised, and this was very, very clearly wrong. There was risk to patients, absolutely, not only the prescription side of things, but the procedural side of things. And they just kept kind of pushing the envelope, asking me to do more and more that was outside of my scope of practice. I gave a lot of pushback. If you were to go back and look at my documentation, very clearly, spelling out to the best of my abilities what I did and know it, like acknowledging the limits of my licensure and things that I was not going to do, kind of thing, just trying to CYA, right?
Yeah.
But the tipping point again ended up being me being the only person with a license in the building. And then there was an instance where I was kind of reprimanded for being or for having discussed with a patient the benefits of NAD. I don't know if you're familiar with that as a drip, but it's really, really popular right now. But what it is it's like a 4 to 5 hour IV experience where it makes you feel terrible. It feels like you've been kicked in the guts. You're, nauseous. It's cramping everywhere, and it's supposed to have all these longevity benefits. But it's
Wow.
really,
Sign
really
me up for
expensive.
that.
Yeah, right. Like $500 to $600, but people just feel so good afterwards. Or do you feel good because the misery stopped? I don't know. Debatable. But my problem is I'm very into reading all of the research and evidence-based practice because medicine is always changing and we should do our best to stay on top of it so we're doing the best for our patients. And a patient asked me about this NAD. She's, what is your opinion on this? And she's actually a doctor herself, so I felt comfortable discussing this evidence-based research with her. And I guess that got back to the owner, and he all but told me to lie to patients in order to push products. And that just ended it for me because if we're not doing this for patients, like, what are we doing?
Wow. That's I mean, patient safety always should be the first thing. That's literally what the medical
Yeah, do no
community
harm,
is
right?
built on. Yes, we all take that oath.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Okay, well, let's talk a little bit more in depth about the services that the clinic provided to members. Was there a membership like what I was seeing for other these med spa clinics?
Yeah, so we had three different membership tracks. There was like a primary care, which kind of tied into, we would prescribe you theoretically anything, but like ADHD medications fall into that category. We had a hormone replacement therapy, so men and or women, men of any age, women of premenopausal, postmenopausal, that kind of thing, and then weight loss therapies where we could theoretically safely monitor your weight loss and prescribe physician-assisted medications, GLP-1 and 2s. And you could do different combinations of those. So we offered a monthly version of those and then a slightly discounted annual membership if you paid up front. And again, that was kind of to pay us to be that prescribing entity, refer to specialists, that kind of thing.
And you had mentioned, so it sounds like hormone replacement therapy was a big revenue driver at this practice. Testosterone replacement therapy specifically. You kind of alluded to the clientele for that. Like, what was that demographic like, and what are some red flags that you noticed?
Yeah, again, men of all ages. Literally everybody walked out with a prescription for testosterone if they wanted it. So folks would come in, you know, describe what their issues were. We'd get a full panel of labs, come back, and based on those levels, prescribe or recommend different courses of action they could take. And all men were offered, actually women too, are offered to take supplemental testosterone if they want. Depending on what their current level is, their dose would be hashed out that way. But everybody, even if they were within normal limits, and this was going to be outside of insurance because the levels for insurance are so clinically low. It's very, very difficult for people to get it covered by insurance. So assuming, 90+% of these individuals are going to be paying for this out of pocket. So,
Mm.
I mean, we're having, God, even 22-year-olds coming in and getting tea. Some had kind of like dabbled in performance enhancing drugs in their even younger years, and that is something that can totally knock out your natural production. But some were just wanted to feel like Superman, or maybe we're doing like a bodybuilding kind of track. Led to a ton of super therapeutic guys. We'd have them pop at like 2000 for test. And we had some that knew how to play the game. They knew that they would stop taking it like 2 weeks before they were going to draw their labs to check what their level was. And we even had a guy Photoshop his lab results. So people definitely knew how to play the game.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
See, you mentioned that they're not really meeting the clinical threshold for insurance coverage. Like, what diagnosis codes are being used on these lab orders? Because I'm assuming, are the patients paying out of pocket for the labs also, or are those going to the insurance?
So most people used their insurance towards labs. So we had these preset forms where you would just check the box of we had like 20 options for common diagnosis codes that were used. And insurance generally pays for a full panel of like general health labs. So like your CMP is going to be covered, your, CBC, cholesterol panel, things of that nature. But generally speaking, that next check of testosterone and whatnot was probably not going to be covered, but we still threw generic codes on there like, other signs or symptoms and things like that.
Hmm. Like vague things like other fatigue.
Yes. Yep. That's
Okay.
another one we used a lot. Yep. You got it.
And were the lab orders like individualized to the patient, or was it just like a standard set of lab panels that got ordered for everyone?
Standard, a big list of 23 things for a new patient. And then if it were just like a recheck to make sure that this was an appropriate level for you, it was like 5 different things. Um,
Oh
but
my
yeah, pretty
goodness.
pretty templated.
Oh boy.
Okay, so you mentioned weight management. I'm assuming that's like the GLP-1 drugs. Were they offering the FDA approved drugs or were they compounded drugs?
Yeah, so again, everybody, wants insurance to pay for everything. So if people qualified, and again, like Ozempic is more for type 2 diabetes, like Wegovy is the weight loss approved one. And so it was if people qualified through their insurance, like you had to have for the diabetic one a certain A1C to qualify. And for the Wegovy one, you had to have a certain BMI and that kind of thing. So if those people didn't qualify through those, we did work with compounding pharmacies to help people get access to GLP-1s. And this kind of fell into the era where Eli Lilly couldn't produce enough of their own product. So it was something that was okay at the time.
Oh, okay. So it was kind of like flying under the radar.
Yes, and even after they were able to produce their own, these compounding pharmacies were able to find loopholes. Like if it's a recipe for chocolate chip cookies, these guys were adding M&Ms in there too. So now it's not the same recipe, so you can still produce it. So they were adding vitamin B12 to these prescriptions to make it a different composition, if that makes sense.
Gosh, I don't know. That's questionable for me.
Also questionable, you mentioned ozone therapy and hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Um, I'm just curious if these treatments were being used for FDA approved reasons, or were people biohacking, like trying to lengthen their telomeres or something, trying to rejuvenate their skin? Like what were the indications for these treatments?
Yeah, mostly biohacking for sure. Um, ozone is a questionable therapy. So was the individual that sold the product to the clinic. The studies are not super well widespread, but hyperbaric oxygen therapy is something that I used in my time in the level 1 trauma center. That's going to be in, a clinical practice is going to be more like carbon monoxide poisoning or drowning victims, just forcing excessive amounts of oxygen to force other things out of the bloodstream. However, there are beginning to use it in things for like extreme healing cases because it's again forcing oxygen into those tissues. So a couple people were using it for, actually most people were using the hyperbaric for healing purposes. We had
Hmm.
like surgical scarring healing. We actually had a guy that was coming in from like 2 hours away to try to like post stroke heal, and he couldn't
Hmm.
really move, so we had to all four of us try to stick this man inside this chamber.
Oh gosh. I hope I hope nobody hurt themselves.
Yeah. Lift with your legs, not your back, right?
um, who was administering the hyperbaric oxygen
Nobody
generally?
with a license.
Oh
Our
goodness.
random front desk guy was a sweet guy, but couldn't even handle checking a blood pressure on anybody. The owner's son, who did definitely had no sort of licensure of anything, barely had a GED,
Oh
and
wow.
yeah, between those two, that was about it. And that's something that can be really dangerous. It, it measures the atmospheric pressure, the ATAs, and it's just like diving to the bottom of a deep pool, that kind of pressure in your ears. So these people should have for sure had vital signs taken before. And also some sort of looking in their ears to make sure that they're going to be safe to even go, or you can blow people's eardrums out if something's going on in there.
So you mentioned some injections, like stem cell injections and plasma-rich protein or PRP. Um, were members receiving these services, and what kind of, if they were, what kind of issues were they receiving them for?
Yeah, so everybody was doing injections. Testosterone injections, they would let anybody do, and that should be IM or intramuscular. And, sounds easy enough, but if you don't do it right, you can hurt people or create issues. So we had a couple um, patients that came back complaining of and ended up having like these massive knots, and because we used to do in the glute because it's a big muscle that doesn't hurt as much, and they had these giant knots. A couple guys got cellulitis, but then we were doing more risky kind of things. PRP and stem cells can be put really in anything, any sort of injured area, which can include, we did a lot of joint capsules. So into that bursa there, whether it was a knee or a shoulder, and that really should be done by, somebody with a medical license. And me doing it with somebody watching over me, right? Like direct physician supervision. But no, sometimes it was the uh, unlicensed former CNA or the children of the owner doing these things. And if you get an infection in a bursa, I mean that's pretty serious stuff.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. You definitely need some proper medical care if you get an infection in an area like that. I'm curious, as a nurse, what the documentation would look like for these types of procedures. Can you guide us through a quick, off the top of your head entry of what one might see when they're looking at the records for this particular clinic?
Oh, that would depend on who had performed it. If it wasn't being done by me or another person with a license, it probably wasn't even being documented at all, to be honest with you.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because as a nurse, we're taught at the very minimum, you have to have the patient's vitals before the injections, the location of the injection, the substance being injected, including like lot number and expiration date and all that good information, the amount of fluids injected, how long the procedure took, and whether or not the member had any adverse reactions. Were any of these members actually monitored after the injections?
No, Daphne, come on, get out of here with these crazy ideas about patient safety. We
Oh
don't
my
believe in that here.
gosh. Oh, yeah. One of the concerns that immediately just jumps to mind is what you mentioned earlier, an infection at the injection site.
hmm
Is there anything else that comes to the top of your mind when thinking about issues that could potentially happen?
We had a couple instances of wrong medication, right? When you're administering a medication, you
No.
got, right med, right injection or route of administration, all the rights. Sometimes it was somebody else's testosterone. Sometimes it was the wrong dose because they weren't looking at patients' charts. They're like, oh, Jim Bob always gets, you know, zero point 0.3 mLs of test. Like, I'm just going to keep giving it to him. And what if we had changed his dose depending on what his labs came back like and people weren't checking?
Oh my gosh. I would love to audit these records someday.
Oh my gosh, that would be yeah, that'd be like Disney World. That'd be the Disney of a record review. It'd be so fun.
Yeah. I'm just blown away. I'm speechless right now.
Well, not surprisingly, this place, I think you had mentioned the FBI was in visit paid the clinic a visit once. Um,
Yeah, actually twice. I know they were rated sometime before I had gotten there. I would assume it had something to do with the time in which he lost his license, but a couple months before I was still there, a lady dressed all in black flashed an FBI badge at the front desk. So something was certainly brewing on some level.
so it's not surprising that you actually ended up leaving that clinic. But you didn't actually leave, right? You were kind of forced out. Is that what happened?
Yeah, I don't, I'm assuming it had something to do with the amount of different three-letter agencies that I tried to report these guys to, but
Good job.
uh, right?
I mean, I'm sorry
Um,
this happened to you, but you did the right
no,
thing.
it was not sitting right with my soul. Um, received a text message that I was not welcome to return to the clinic. I was not given any sort of information as to why. It was a text message, and that was it.
Well, thank you so much for coming forward with your story. You've given us investigators like a ton of things to think about when we're looking at these types of clinics.
Yeah,
Absolutely. It's a
I'm
pleasure.
still speechless. I'm sorry. But these stories are why the F files exist to expose the hidden risks in our healthcare system and elevate the voices of those protecting patient safety. So, thank you for looking out for your patients.
Yeah. And here at Healthcare Fraud Shield, we help payers catch issues like this before they spiral. The Healthcare Fraud Shield platform alerts and predictive analytics help us find red flags like boilerplated diagnoses, boilerplated lab tests, vague diagnoses like malaise and fatigue or other fatigue that might be used to mask medical necessity, expired medical licenses, and even misrepresentation of rendering provider.
Registration's still open for Healthcare Fraud Shield Elevate, our free user conference in Austin, Texas, happening April 21st and 22nd. Email info@hcfraudshield.com for more information.
Happy New Year, everybody. Everything that has been discussed in this podcast is based on our day-to-day experiences.
Any opinions stated by myself, Mandi, or any guests during the podcast are not necessarily representative of the opinions or views of Healthcare Fraud Shield.